Hello, and welcome back to Many Adventures Mini. This week I'm getting a little bit back into form, going ahead and painting up some of the Whiz Kids minis I have lying around to get ready for sale on my Etsy store. So that's what I decided to go with this week. So I'm doing this week a male human monk. It's pretty basic, though this is the first time I'm attempting to paint a character with a darker skin tone. I usually have mostly worked with lighter skin tones or alien skin tones, like with my tiefling videos. So this one is a little bit different, but I'm fairly pleased with how it came out, and I was happy I gave it a shot. So let's go ahead and jump into it so you can see how it went. Alright, so here's our initial images for this human monk. I thought he was pretty cool. He's lightly posed, doesn't have any weapons in his hand, and has lots of skin and musculature showing, which I thought would be fun to try and paint and see how well I can do my skin highlighting, which is one of the reasons I wanted to pick this one. So I start off as usual with my gray primer over my sand, like I like to put on my miniatures. And I quickly go on to my oak brown as the dark base for the skin color. I went with this since I'm not planning on using any sort of shade washes on the skin, so I went with the darkest base color for all of the shadows, and I'll build it up from here to get all the highlights that I want. But I just give this a thorough coating over everything just to make sure I've got everything properly base coated. And I think it's a pretty good solid starting color to work with for this kind of skin tone. And then after that I use this angel green in order to get the guy's pants. There wasn't any particular reason I went with green. It just seemed right in this situation. I'll admit it's also similar to the color that was on the example packaging for this one, so maybe not all that creative, but I thought it was still appropriate, so I decided to stick with it. But I get it all on his pants there, and I also get it on his belt thing here. I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's a bit too wide to just be a belt, but part of his waistcloth here I'll get green going around. And again, this is just the blocking in kind of stage. I'll just get the flat base color, usually my dark color, going in there and making sure I get what I need. And again, touching up on the skin for any areas that were a little thin. You often need to do 2 or 3 coats in order to get everything coated properly. But then I come in with this leather brown, which I use on his shoes. And I basically just leave these like this. I don't do much else after this. Now, like I've said before, if you spend too much time on shoes, you're pretty much wasting your time. But after that, I debated a little bit, and I decided to use that for the next tone up in my skin highlights. So I went ahead and got started on that already. And you can already see that the skin is starting to pop out with me just getting a lot of the broad surfaces with this lighter brown color. I think it's working pretty well in this kind of application. So I was surprised and happy with it. Like I've been saying, I wasn't sure if this would be the right brown color, but over top of the darker brown, it seems to have worked pretty well. And I'll continue lightening this up as I go along. And I spent a lot of time highlighting this guy's muscles and face and whatnot, which is the top of the model. That's the most interesting, so that's what you'd expect. And here I decided to continue the green down on these little tassels on the back of his waistcloth thing and just darken up more of the green. And I use the dark stone here for getting my initial color on my rocks. I like it, like I've said before, because it's a slightly brown, dark gray. Works great for the mid-tone and some of the shadow on these small stones. So that's something I was happy about. And I used this dragon red here as a color for this leather band going across this guy's chest. The red is a nice contrasting color to the green, which adds a good amount of visual interest, just having that splash of red near the green. It helps there a lot. And then I use this mummy robes to go over the rest of the waistcloth, just to put a proper off-white color there instead of just leaving the primer color. I preferred the way this looks a little bit over what the actual primer color was, so I'll use that along with on the waistcloth there, just to brighten it up and make it look nice. And again, just going over everything multiple times. That's kind of the key here. I also clean up his wristbands there as well with the mummy white. I haven't decided exactly what color I want them to be at this point, so I'm just cleaning them up with a white color in order to be prepared for later. Then I take this greedy gold color and I use it just to basically get the edges of his green parts on his waistcloth here. It just helps it pop out a little bit, and I kind of liked it. If I did it again, I wouldn't necessarily go with gold. I might just pick a yellow instead of a gold. It seems like it's a little bit too... It's just a little bit too fancy for a monk. Monks are often seen as like taking vows of poverty and things like that, so I thought that this was maybe a little bit too fanciful, but I liked it enough that I stuck with it. So I was a little undecided on that as I was going along, but I liked it enough that I decided to leave it. But if I did it again, I would probably go over with yellow instead. And I also use that red there to pick out the guy's nunchucks that he has put in his belt before I lighten up my green with some of that white just to do some highlights on his pants. And again, it's just the red and that green are contrasting colors. They go together well and they make each other stand out, so that's why I did it. And then I'm doing another coat here for his skin tone, trying to lighten up the high bits a bit more. Then I use this plate mail here. I only need just a little bit because I'm just using it to paint these bead necklace that he has on his, just going around his neck. So that's pretty simple and easy, and I just do that and don't really have to mess with much else. But after that, I come in with some of this black wash that I have made at home, and I just put that over his waistcloth, and I spend a lot of time soaking up any of the excess because I just want this to just barely be filling in those crevices, because I want it to stay white and only have just a hint of shade going in the deeper crevices. And after that, I use my burnt umber wash in order to tint the color on his wristbands, since I decided I wanted them to look kind of like bone or bandages or something like that. And then I take tan flesh. It's my darkest flesh color that I have, and I mix a bit of it with the leather brown to do my next layer of highlighting. And this really brings it back into the territory of what seems like a normal skin tone. So I am happy that I did this. It works pretty well. It gets me the face pretty nicely. And then I can use just the normal tanned flesh as my highest highlight color. But when I'm done with that level of highlighting, I use my matte black to come in here and try to work on the eyes. I had a little bit more trouble with this than I have had before, a little too free with my brush, so I had to fix it up and then come back and be a little bit more careful, but my end result was something that I was happy with, so it was worth the trouble, even though I had to go and fix it 2 or 3 times, as you'll be able to see here. I left it all in so you can see the process of going through it. And I did make a little bit of a mistake having him resting against the back of my finger here so soon after doing some of my highlighting, because this did cause little flecks of paint to come off, so he has like little white spots on his back that I had to go and fix up. It was obnoxious. It wasn't that big of a deal to fix, but I kept missing them and having to go back and fix it long past when I thought I needed to, so there's that kind of thing going on. Be careful where you're touching when you're working on a project, otherwise you might peel something off you didn't intend to. And then I use uniform gray here and just do a little bit of a dry brushing over the base just to brighten it up, give more of a rock look to everything before I use more black to blacken in the sides of the base. And with that done, I use just a little bit of my glue here to apply that with some flock in order to get just a really short grass look. And with that, all I need to do is use my varnish here for a final coat. And that is this miniature done. It was a simple process. You'll be able to see here all my different angle shots. I'm really happy with this one, and it was a lot of fun to put together. I hope you guys enjoyed watching it, and I'll go ahead and flip over to the end camera and talk to you later. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed that. I really enjoyed painting this one. I was able to get it done surprisingly quickly. It didn't take me as much time as I thought it would. and I think it came out to a reasonably good standard. So this is one of the miniatures that I'm going to be putting up on my Etsy store. I'll have a link to that down in my description if you would like to purchase this or some of the other miniatures I have put up there. If you have any feedback, please go ahead and leave it down in the comments. I'd love to see what anybody has to say about how I've done this. In addition, I'd like to hear if anybody has like any recommendations for specific kinds of characters they'd like to see me paint. I'd like to see what people are interested in, and some of that stuff might end up going up on the shop, so you never know. So yeah, feedback down below. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a like, and if you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell notifications so you get notified whenever my videos go up. With that, I'll try to see you guys all next week.